In this video, I'm going to share everything that I do to beat inflation. And it's going to be a two-part series. This first video is going to release this week, and it's going to focus on how you can make your dollars stretch farther when you're making purchases. Inflation is causing pain for everyone in their wallets, and it feels like it's getting harder and harder to live. And so in this video, I want to focus on how you can fight back. But first, we have to understand what it is that we're fighting against. The first is what I call purchase inflation. This means that when you spend money, your dollar is doing less for you. So we need to look at our purchasing behavior to figure out how we can combat this effect so that our dollars can work for us rather than against us while maintaining a quality of life. The second way that inflation affects us is through currency inflation. And you can think of this like all of the dollars in America running a marathon. And if your dollars stop running the race and they sit on the sideline, all the other dollars keep running while yours is getting smaller and smaller and lagging farther and farther behind. So we have to figure out how we get our money in the race so that it's growing with the economy versus without it. And this is the key way that the rich get richer when it comes to inflation over the last few years, and how for regular people that aren't investing their money, it feels like everything's getting more tight. And so in the second video, we're going to talk about how we can start to get ahead of that so that our money is working for us. So let me talk about how we fight this purchase inflation. The biggest thing is that we have to get more sensitive. And what do I mean by that? So economists, and if you've taken an economics course, you'll know this term. There's this term called price sensitivity. And it's the idea in economics that as someone raises their prices, there is less and less demand for that product, which would normally make sense. So as prices go up, I am less likely to buy something. Well, in my opinion, what's happened in the last few years, we've become incredibly price insensitive, meaning people are raising prices up and up and up. And because of the news and just the general acceptance of this inflation, we become insensitive. So we don't change our purchasing habits because of inflation going up. In a way, it feels like we have no control. I really want to focus on how can we become more price sensitive, because this is the war that we're fighting. So companies are betting that you will not be price sensitive. They're betting that, and I was used to be in meetings before I left corporate America where they're looking at, hey, it's clear that inflation's going up. How can we raise our prices without having customers leave us? And so there's this strategic game on the behalf of businesses that's saying, we bet that we can get you to spend more money and you're not going to leave us. The other side of that bet is that you have to decide, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to change my behavior around this product and I'm not going to pay you. And that's the only way that we fight back against inflation and against companies that continue to raise prices, even if they don't necessarily have to, versus it being a profit move for them to raise prices. And you'll know this is true because you can see the stock market over the last 4 to 5 years. Stocks have shot up as their growth and their revenues have shot up. Meanwhile, normal people's quality of life has went down and down. And so we've seen stocks go up and up and up, and your quality of life go down and down and down as people are funneling more money into companies to buy stuff from them, even though they're providing the same or less value to you. So that's kind of the theoretical plus my opinion of what's happening. But how do we go from the theoretical to actually helping you in your individual case? So the first part of becoming more sensitive or price sensitive is that we have to start budgeting. So if you don't budget today, it's really easy to become price insensitive. Why is that? Because while you have a feeling that things are getting more expensive, you don't understand your personal situation. And that's what budgeting allows us to do. So let me give you an example. Let's say that last month you spent $150 in groceries, and this month you spent $200 in groceries. Well, what would your personal inflation rate be when this price changes? So in that case, your budget inflation is 33%. It's went up. And not only that, it's not even an annual inflation rate. That's just your monthly inflation in that specific category. Now, it's easy to understand once you have a budget because you can see how changes happen. So, for instance, maybe Netflix decides to sneakily increase their monthly rate, and you have it on auto bill pay, and you go from paying 18 bucks to now $21. They're betting that that $3 change isn't really going to make you do anything because it's set up on automatic payment. And you're just not looking that closely at every single dollar. So that's the mindset that we have to start changing, is that we are going to be price sensitive, and budgets help us do that. Okay, so now I'm going to share my 6 ways to help combat inflation. And I decided, in honor of being sensitive, I'll do it with the S's. And so we're going to talk about how to substitute, how to save, how to stop, how to share, how to sustain, or how to spread. And you'll know what each of these means by the end of this video, so that you can start applying it to how you're making purchases today across anything that you buy. So the first is substitute. I think about substitution is, can I maintain a similar quality of life in whatever I'm buying by substituting what I want to buy with something that's cheaper? Let me give you a few ways that people can do this. So one is, you can buy like a generic brand of something. So let's say you go to the grocery store and you buy Boar's Head, or anything, any brand, popular brand, but you've noticed that these brands' prices have continued to go up and up and up. Instead of buying the name brand item, buy the generic brand. But there's a more powerful way to think about substitution. You can also decide that, instead of buying a specific product, is there something that does a similar thing that is a lot cheaper? So let me give you an example. When you're going to the grocery store, instead of making a grocery list and saying, I want to buy this specific meat, for example, you can go to the grocery store and simply just buy whatever meat's on sale. So this is a great way to substitute. So if you say, I want protein in my diet, instead of saying, I want this specific protein, just go and buy whatever's cheapest. And so that might give you a way to substitute. So you're still getting the same amount of nutrition without the increased inflation that you're seeing on a specific product. Another way to think about substitution, I mentioned Netflix. So maybe Netflix raises their prices. What about Hulu? So has Hulu raised their prices? If they haven't, could you switch to Hulu from Netflix and have the same level of entertainment while substituting for something cheaper? Substitution doesn't just come with the products that we buy, but you can also think about where you buy. So a classic example might be, instead of shopping at Whole Foods, could we shop at Aldi's? Or could we start shopping at Costco and doing bulk purchases and being really thoughtful about what we're buying, versus getting nickel and dimed at a grocery store? The net result is, anything that you buy, if you see that it's going up in your budget, or you just realize that what you're paying for has gotten more expensive, the first thing to ask yourself is, can I substitute what I'm buying with something else that's cheaper? And not just asking yourself that, but getting creative with how you could do that. So it doesn't matter what it is. Okay, then the second thing is stop. So this is pretty easy. If there's something that's raising their prices on me, and they're making a bet against me that they're going to get to charge me more money without offering any additional value, my typical first reaction is, well, you know, I'm not going to be vulgar on this channel, but I'm not going to let them do that. So I'm just going to stop. So I'm going to cancel that subscription. And I'm going to find an alternative way to get my entertainment or whatever it is that I'm doing without that service. Now, that doesn't mean that for everything you stop. And in a lot of cases where things are like necessary, like we have to eat, we have to buy our necessities, you can just stop them. But it's a good way to think about is there something that I buy today that I could just stop? You have to think about, is it bringing me happiness or satisfaction, or enough satisfaction that it's worth the continual rise in price of that thing? And if it's not in your like top five, top five, top three things that you really like, I would encourage you to just stop it, just cancel it, and then find an alternative way to spend time. A great way to stop entertainment is, could we just go outside? Could we pick up a different hobby, something that's cheaper, that, might allow us to grow more and stop us from spending this money? Okay, the third way is to save. And this kind of goes back to substitution, where we're looking for something cheaper. But a lot of times, what you can do is you can save on the products that you already have today. In a couple of my videos, I've talked about doing this with your subscriptions. So every 3 to 6 months, what I like to do is call the services I pay for, call them or go online and say you're going to cancel, which is mostly true, because if they don't do something for you, I will cancel. And so what you can do is, a lot of times companies will actually offer you a customer retention offer, meaning they don't want you to leave. They want you to continue paying them more and more money, and so they want to figure out how they can keep you hooked on their product. And so when people call to cancel, you typically get a discount. And for me, I like to try this every 3 to 6 months where I'm saving money on the things that I'm already buying. But it's not just that. I mean, what else can you do to get creative to save on purchases you make? So this could mean maybe you do a bulk purchase. So instead of buying one of something, you buy four of them, but you know that you're going to use it over a longer period and you're going to get a bulk discount. If you're a student, lots of times there's student discounts, there's retiree discounts, there's all sorts of discounts, even with where you work and different things. So always be looking for ways to save. Even couponing, that's become less and less active throughout the years, but you can look at couponing. A lot of times online, you can get apps on your web browser that offer easy ways to save or price matching. So always just be kind of looking for that way to save. Although that's getting harder and harder again as inflation is rising across all things. Let me give you an example from way in the past that really I liked doing for myself. So there was a martial arts gym that I like to go to, but it was $200 a month, and I couldn't gut out. I was going to keep paying it because it meant a lot to me, but 200 bucks a month was a lot of money for me. So what I actually did is I talked to the gym owner and said, "Look, I work a corporate job, but after 5 or 6 o'clock, I can come work for you." And a lot of times, a lot of the training was at night. And so what I actually did is I ended up picking up a 2 hour part-time job a few days in the week. What they offered me is my $200 gym membership was free. Not only that, did I started making a couple bucks in an hourly wage job after work, and I got to be in an environment that I already like to be in around the people that I normally like to train with, and it became kind of a win-win for me. So, you can kind of get really creative about this save opportunity where you're just thinking about, I don't want to pay this much for this thing. How could I get it for less? Okay, so then the fourth idea is sharing. And sharing is probably the biggest life hack that has helped me save the most money, especially in big areas. And you have to make the decision for yourself on the quality of life that you're willing to accept. But I'll give you an example. Like in my personal situation, I was really unhappy with rent. And so one of the things I did when I was much younger is I moved into a house with five other people and we split different bedrooms in this large house. My rent bill at the time was like $1,200, which might sound cheap, but 10 years ago it was actually pretty high, to down to $400. And I got to split all of my utilities and bills. Now, I know that is not like not everybody's going to be able to take advantage of that. Maybe not everybody wants to have a roommate, but to give you an example of something that powerful, that saved me $800 a month, and so that gave me huge flexibility in the rest of my budget because I was able to share in expenses that I was stuck in every single month. So other ways to share, you could share in subscriptions. A lot of times there's family plans on accounts. So maybe you and a friend, if you each listen to Spotify, you get a Spotify family plan and you split that payment two ways. Other examples, maybe you have a car, so you could carpool with someone and they help pay for gas or depreciation on your car. The next one is kind of harder to track, but conceptually you can start implementing this pretty easily. And that's what I call sustain. So, how can we become or sustain our things longer so that we're having to replace them less? So, an example might be like maybe I get my haircut 1 week later than I might like, and so basically by extending out the times I get a haircut, I'm sustaining how often I'm having to pay for something. Same thing with my clothes. There's a lot of different ways that you can sustain things so that they last longer than you might like them. And so this gets into a quality of life balance, and you have to kind of decide what the right level of frugality and minimalism is for you. But for me, I always tried to find ways to make things last longer. And companies do this too. So, it's a good business practice is things depreciate over time. So you use them, they become less valuable, their useful life decreases. And so the question is, how do we extend the useful life of the things that we have? And it's kind of a fun thing because from a mindset perspective, you actually start to appreciate your stuff more because you realize that this is helping you save money by it lasting longer. And so you want to take care of it more. And so, in a way, by taking care of things more, it's actually helping you make and save money more because you're not having to spend money down the road to replace this thing. A really good example of this might be your cell phone. So, if you're someone that likes to upgrade your cell phone every single year to the next iPhone model, just don't do that. I mean, consider maybe just upgrading every other year if you upgrade every year today. Or, you could just not upgrade for a few years and pretty much keep the same features that you have today. Unless there's something that is really required that means a lot to you. And again, when you have a budget and you're tracking these different items, it gets really easy to see where you're having spikes in certain categories that might be coming from inflation. Okay, and then the last one, it encapsulates all of the other ones, and it's what I call spread. And so you can think about how to spread inflation across your dollars. So this is where you can start to really take control with your money. So I know you might be watching and you might think, well, yeah, but I mean, I can't really control my groceries. I can't control my rent price. Maybe not in the short term, but maybe there's ways to spread that inflationary cost against other things that aren't as valuable to you. So let me tell you what I mean. So let's say in the example where I got rid of my $200 gym membership. Well, that $200 that I'm saving can be offset in a different category. So maybe my rent did go up by $200. Well, now I saved $200 in this gym membership. So technically, my inflation rate, my personal inflation rate is 0%. Maybe I am spending more. Maybe I do like buying the new iPhone every single year. But maybe I'm finding ways to either substitute or stop service or save or share on other expenses so that basically the inflation rate that I personally have keeps at 0%. And so that's what I like to do is look at how can I spread the inflationary pressure that I have on my expenses so that I'm able to maintain the quality of life that I like and decrease the expense where it's not doing a lot for me. Okay. And then another one I want to talk about right at the end is things that you buy that are shielded from inflation. And this can be kind of hard to grasp, but there are things that you buy that they either increase in value after you buy them with inflation, or there's things that you buy that get weaker with inflation. Most stuff that we buy as we use it, it gets worth less and less and less. Let me give you a few examples of larger things that actually help you combat inflation. The first one is often real estate. And I'm going to get into real estate. It's a whole other video. But one way you can kind of think about this is if you lock in a good interest rate. And the problem with this example is that the ships already sailed on this. But if you were to be someone that got into real estate when inflation rates were low, what happened is you locked in this low inflation rate. So as inflation went up and up and up, your inflation stays much lower or artificially lower than everyone else's. And so this is an example of where wealth can start to build on itself with certain purchases. So if you are someone that always rents, the challenge with rent is that it's going to always increase with inflation. And so you're going to have this price that you're not in control of. Another way to shield your money might be a purchase of a vehicle. So if you lease a vehicle, you're always going to be stuck in this 3-year cycle where when you trade your car in, you're going to lease at whatever the market price is. But if you hold on to your car over a long period of time, you would have bought it at one point, and let's say inflation really did happen to the car market, which if you've tried to be in the market for a car recently, I'm sure you felt this. All the cars are more expensive. And so you have this asset that you get to value that regardless of how much someone will give it to you, it's getting the job done, which is getting you from point A to point B. And it's doing it for a lot less dollars than someone who might be in the market today for something. And so we can think about how can we purchase things that shield our dollars from inflation. And that's going to get into how to protect dollars and how we can use currency inflation to help our assets. And that's something I'm going to talk about in a future video. But for this one, my end goal or for you is to really be thinking about these main 6 areas. Where can we substitute? Where can we stop? Where can we share in something? Where can we save, sustain, or spread our expenses across so that our personal inflation rate is lower than what most people are experiencing? And if you like this idea and you like these 6 key areas, but you're having a challenge with how might I do this in a key expense category, I'd love to hear your comments in the section below about either things that you struggle with when it comes to inflation or areas where you've actually beat inflation with one of these key areas. And if you have questions about how you might do this in your own case, feel free to drop a comment. I love to read all of them, and I'll try to give you a response about how I might approach a problem using this framework. If you like this video, I would appreciate it if you throw me a like or subscribe. And if you want more information from me on key areas to save money, build wealth, investing, you can go to my website. I've launched a newsletter from last Friday. And my plan is to basically come out with a new newsletter every single week as long as I feel like it's good information that will benefit you. So feel free to sign up. The website is in the description below. So thanks for your time. And I hope that these 6 ways that I help combat inflation have been helpful for you.